And we can start with two, one.
Call this meeting to order. September RSU 25 school board meeting. If you would all join with me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We have our roll call. Jim, do you want to read that?
Yeah, Ms. Asper is here, Ms. Burgess is here, Mr. Frazier is here, Mr. Claire is here, Mr. Burgess is here, and Mr. Foster is here. And we have a vacancy with the town of Bucksport that they'll fill in their election in November. And we have a new board member from Prospect that was elected in August. I've reached out a couple of times, have not been able to make connection with that person. But we'll get them on board. So
Yeah, you do have a roll.
You have a quorum.
All right. Next, we have our public participation time, where we accept calls and emails. And we will hold that open for 5 minutes. If you are watching and you have something that you would like to discuss with us, please contact us. While we do that, while we wait, we can move on to adjustments to the agenda.
Yeah, I have 3 adjustments for the agenda. For M1B nomination and the support staff, Katie Eslin, Pre-K Ed Tech 3. And if you'd also add to M1B under extracurricular nominations, Kyle McGeechan, middle school golf coach. And if you could add agenda item 6, I apologize for leaving this off. I forgot it was already going to get ready for October, the MSBA annual delegate assembly, and we need to nominate a primary delegate and a secondary delegate. We'll add that to the agenda item 6.
Great. We have some minutes that got out to all of you. I would look for a motion to approve those minutes unless if someone has a change that they need to discuss.
I move that we approve the regular meeting of August 18th, 2020.
We have a
Second.
motion.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor of approving the minutes? That is unanimous. Next, we have communications and correspondence.
We have a few communications to share with you. In your packet, I shared the executive order from the governor's office to discuss pre-K through 12 education. Underneath that executive order, because of the state of civil emergency, she's gone down through a couple of key points in this. Is the requirement that the local districts develop an in-person, a remote, and a hybrid instruction model, which we've done. The requirement of emergency certification and certification for teachers because of the need for additional teaching staff because of the smaller classrooms. There is a process for emergency certification. And any individual who holds a 4-year post-secondary degree or its equivalent can be considered for emergency certification. Also, educator and administrative certification reciprocity. So if we have an individual who comes to us from another state that holds a valid certification from that state, we can accept that as valid. Okay. The whole facility disinfection. This was quite an interesting process where to use a motorized hydrostatic disinfecting tool, which many districts, and we're one of them, we purchased a number of them to use. And then after the fact, we found out that from the Department of Agriculture, we had to have a licensing process. And that was quite an interesting process. So they did do a special 1-year licensing and for an emergency situation. So our custodians all participated in the training. took the written quiz that went along with it, and they are all now certified to apply for this year. And we will be working on getting a master's license in the future, so we can continue to do this, because even once we get past this state of emergency, I think increased cleaning protocols are a good thing, and it's an opportunity for it to continue. So that's from the governor. We also had emergency egress drills, which is really interesting. Obviously, we have to do set drills for fire drills. That's all traditional, we know that, and also lockdown safety drills. That's interesting how you do that and maintain your social distancing. So we have some guidance on how to do that. They've changed some of the requirements. For the first two drills, they want to be considered classroom instruction or tabletop instruction. And then they do want us to practice 4 emergency drills using social distancing. So that'll be interesting to make that work, but we will take care of that. I shared with you an update that we received from our attorneys at Drummond and Woodson regarding the payroll tax, employee social security tax deferral. I don't know if folks followed along with that. There was a program that the president put in place. There was no guidance that came with it. We stayed away from that. We did not participate in that. As it turns out, we did the right thing. They would require that if we deferred the equivalent of 6.2% of an employee share of Social Security tax between now and December 30th, but that employee would still be responsible for that portion of it after January 1. If the employee left employment before they were able to fill that back in after January 1, we had to withhold their salaries until to make up that difference. If we were not able to do that, then it would fall on the district to pay the employee share in addition to the district share. We did not withhold our employees' Social Security, and the information we've got from the lawyers definitely supported that decision. I don't have it in here, but we did have a communication just came in at the end of the day. We got our AFLA grant and for adult education, and that was over $71,000 this year. So that's what I have for communication for you folks. Happy to answer any questions.
Does anyone have any questions for Jim? Well, for the board chair report, I just want to say that this has been a unique start to a school year. We have 2 children who are at school a few days of the week, at home a few more days of the week. At lunch time now means trying not to burn your mother's kitchen to the ground. Every time that I come home thinking that my son should be at school, somehow tells me that he's at lunch and is playing video games. So I'm a little disturbed at what's going on there, and we need to have a few talks at home, not here. But it seems as though we had a launch which has been fairly successful. We had a few computer issues which we're gotten resolved, and we're up and running, which is saying a lot because this has been a huge effort to get the show on the road. The feds and the state have made a lot of rules, many of them at the last minute, and not to say the least of which is the bickering between rules between the state and the NPA that we're going to be discussing here in just a few minutes. So there's been a lot of challenges here, but we are running, and I'm very hopeful that we'll get these few little kinks worked out, and we'll have a very successful year. Next, we can go on to our committee reports, and I do know that the curriculum committee met.
Yes, we did, and on the agenda, we talked about, Jim shared with us the district updates, which include the opening of schools, which was pretty brand new at that time. And actually got to listen to Todd. Todd was available. He spoke with his experience with the middle school. And also Kathy joined the meeting, and she spoke a little bit about the outline, which she's been doing with Alt Ed, and the hope to get the grant, which did come through, which is great. We had, you probably saw in your inbox from Jim, the letters that were sent home to the parents about food service, the overview of how that was going to work, and with the in-person remote learners and the prices. And Jim covered the sprayers. That was a letter that went home to the parents as well, about the state of Maine standards and the protocols for disinfecting. Evelyn shared with us, as always, a successful and ongoing RSU new to the teachers new to the district. And I think, did Evelyn say there were 17, Jim? New
17.
17, yes. And they sat right here in these desks and did their program. And of course, that's an ongoing program that will go on until, is that a full year, Jim?
Goes to the full year. They'll
Yeah.
finish up in May. Will be their last.
And let's see, we talked about, Jim shared with us about the grants for families with impact to the district, a grant that we received to help with the essential workers and reduced lunch kiddos. That was going to take place at the Erie building.
That's correct.
Yeah. And some of the monies, we received $72,000 for that, and the cost per student is $40 per student, but the grant will cover $28 for our students that go there. So let's see what else. And Evelyn gave us an update on Math in Focus, working with the teacher impact teams to come up with a new curriculum for to replace the Math in Focus. And I think that covers what we discussed. Unless you can think of anything that, David, that you were at that meeting, Jim, no?
Linda, if I could add
I
just
would
a
love it.
little clarification on the childcare program.
Please.
It's designed for middle school children
Right,
up through age of 14. It's for families that are impacted because of the hybrid model. Again, it's $40 per day as a cost for the Y. Our grant will offset the cost of $28. We can only pay for time during school. So the shoulder time before and after, that's the responsibility of the parents. However, if you do qualify for free and reduced lunch, the Y will waive $10 of that charge. So it boils down to $2 per family between now and December 30th. That's the only money we have available for this grant. If there's additional money available afterwards, we will certainly apply for that and go after that money, but that's what we know. That's fixed. Encourage people to contact the YMCA. The applications are available on the Down East YMCA website, and they will certainly work with you. No.
Yeah.
Okay.
Any other questions for? So the finance committee met right before this meeting. The target is to the still remaining 85% of the local budget. We are better than that in all cost centers. One reason for that is that there's been a huge amount of federal money that has passed through the state, which allows us to get all of the things that we needed for this COVID transition. I don't know if you can see the wonderful desk that David is sitting at here, but those are some of the new desks that we have here at the high school that were required to be purchased at the last second. There's all kinds of cleaning and maintenance supplies that we've been purchasing, software updates, computers to bring home. There's a long list. And the
purchasing department around here has been working overtime at acquiring all of these goods and services that are in very high demand and very hard to find, right, at the last second, as you can imagine. This isn't the regular way that we do business, where we take a long time and think for years and strategize about how we're going to do this. This was last second purchasing at whatever vendor was willing to put up with us.
Crisis purchasing.
Right, it was pretty much crisis purchasing. So hats off to all of the last minute craziness that you guys had to go through, which I know could not have been easy. The hot lunch program has some oddities to it this year. As you can imagine, we are seeing our numbers fluctuate by quite a bit. There's, of course, a number of our students who are staying home full-time. And because of the hybrid model, there's a number of our students who are staying home half-time. And so our hot lunch numbers are going to be radically different than what they had been in the past. But one thing that is very important for us is that our number of applications for free and reduced lunch still need to come in, because our title funds are based on those. And so the title funds allow us to have extra resources that come from the federal government to provide for early education. And if we don't receive the same number of free and reduced applications through the hot lunch program that we normally do, those funds will be reduced. So if you know someone who might not have applied and should have, urge them to apply, even if they're only going to be getting hot lunch 1 or 2 days out of the week. And that's Finance Committee. Do you have any questions there? All right, next we have our Policy Committee. Did you meet?
We did not meet.
Not me. Facilities and Ground, did you meet?
Nope.
No?
If I may though,
Yes.
just an update. If you drive up on the Miles Lane and by the soccer field across from Miles Lane School, you'll see a large piece of equipment that's been dropped off there to unload the new lights that are being shipped to us. Expected to arrive sometime tomorrow or Thursday. We do not know what time. I did ask. They can't tell me when they're going to arrive, but seeing how it's 2020, I suspect that there will be a large truck up there right at dismissal time, causing a great deal of congestion. But everything else has been a challenge this year. Why not that? But excited that that's on and moving forward. So
Do the white stakes indicate where the lights are going?
yes, yeah, we've already measured that off, staked that off, maintained it. We've had DigSafe up there twice. We know where the power lines are. We know where the gas lines are. We want to avoid hitting all those, of course. What we're probably going to need to do is upgrade the electrical service that feeds that field, scoreboard, the snack shack, and so on. So we're probably going to have to do an upgrade, which would be above and beyond the project. We suspected that was going to happen. The installer for this is RJ Todd electricians. They're out of Presque Isle. They specialize in installation of lighting, large lighting systems, commercial and athletic lighting systems. And they are an electrical company. So any electrical work we need done, we can do with them. We don't have to bring in a separate, which is quite an advantage. So we've met with the owner of the electrical company, Tim Todd. He was on site. We had a very good conversation. He will be on site for the unloading, and he plans to be on site for the vast majority of the work done here. So they'll have to bore down quite a ways to set in the footings for the lights. They'll be poured concrete. The depth is going to be down 8 to 10 feet, so they have a good solid base. And then once those are installed and able to dry, then they will bring in a crane and boom up the lights and set them on the bases. And the lights are all pre-wired. And so then they'll have to run, the supply electrical will come from the service entrance, and they'll trench that down and disperse that to the different lights. So he's saying it's going to be 2 to 3 week installation period.
Any effect on home soccer games?
Minimal effect on the soccer field. We're obviously going to have to coordinate time and effort around that. But he's going to be able to get to 3 of the lights without even going on the
Right.
playing surface. One of the lights, which would be the closest to the bench side of the field, there will be a small impact on that, but they use equipment that shouldn't make huge damage on the field, so it shouldn't, so we'll see.
It's 2020.
It's 2020, we'll see what that brings. We will probably have to remove sections of the fence, and once we finish the project, we will bring in a fencing company to reset the fences on the foul lines of the ball field that are there. So the lights will be inside of those fences to start. Don't panic, we're gonna reset those fences and come back. So the lights will be actually on the outside. We've already measured out, there's plenty of foul ground along that area. So more than what's required by rule. Okay. So I get everybody up to speed. That was a phone call at 1:30 today.
Anything from HCTC?
We did not meet, but we do meet October 8th. So that will be our first meeting.
Okay. Then next we can go on to administrator and principal reports. You want to go first?
Sure.
You're here.
I can feel the enthusiasm.
So again, I apologize for a very late report, even by my standards. So as I kind of said, and then mostly, I think as hectic and crazy as it's been, as Tom kind of alluded to, and that's probably what you'll hear most of us talk about tonight, is some of those overwhelming feelings that we've had. But I think it does not compare to the gratitude and just the appreciation that we had to have students back in the building the last week. No matter how angry I got at laptops or lunch systems that weren't working the right way or desks showing up at the last minute, and I'm not pointing any fingers at Mr. Morrow because his staff is working extremely hard. It just didn't matter because we had kids back in the building. And that really was all that truly mattered. And the biggest focus for our staff this last week and a half is to let kids know that we're glad they're back, we want them to stay back, and we'll figure out the learning as we go together. And that's really kind of been our message. And to no surprise, the resiliency and patience that our students have shown us as we've tried to muddle our way through this, between helping teachers out, figure out some of the technology stuff, or letting us know what's working or what's not working, and not in a angry or upset way, just, hey, this is not working out, can you help us out here? Am I doing this right? So I want to make sure I'm getting what I can out of this experience. That just, at the end of the day, no matter how tired or frustrated you are with the stuff that's going on, that's kind of what we just keep coming back to. And eventually we know that this other stuff will work its way out. And the last couple of days have been better. Again, I just don't think I can say that enough. It's just March 13th feels like a really long time ago for the last time we saw students. So that first day to see them come through the door really was, it's just rewarding. So other than that, like I said in my report, we have had some bumps, and we knew that it wasn't going to be perfectly smooth coming into the year. I mean, it really kind of got to the point after those 8 days of professional development, and the teachers put in a ton of time, and we really just allowed them. I mean, if you had been here, you would have gone into classrooms, and they literally were students in each other's classrooms, giving feedback onto, this is what I see, this is what I can't understand when you talk into the microphone this way, I can't see anything you write on that side of the whiteboard. If you're standing in the back of the room, I can't hear anything. I mean, we just were getting that type of feedback throughout the course of the week. And the resources that they have been for each other has really been phenomenal. They've just done a fantastic job preparing. But ultimately, you don't know what you don't know until it hits you in the face, right? So we kind of just got to the point we felt like we were as prepared as we were going to get, and then we just needed things to go wrong to figure out what we needed to improve upon. And a lot of that happened, so we know where we need to start working and making adjustments. And, you know, as you probably know, Zoom was what we had been training on, and then unfortunately that didn't work out. We are prepared to move back to Zoom tomorrow. And we're going to give that another go. And it is a superior tool to Google Meet, so we're excited to have that up and going. But in general, I think it was a very good start to school, minus all, you know, the hiccups that we did run into. And, you know, we're all taking on roles that it's kind of fun, delivering lunches and breakfast in the morning. And Mr. Morrow's given me access to more technology than he would like to, I'm sure, at this point. He's regretting some of those decisions. But so it's been a really good start. Obviously, we still have a lot of work to do. You know, and I think we still have a little bit of time of trying to figure out this new way of learning. And I think before we can take deep dives into the content, we need to make sure that the kids can get the material equitably across the board and consistently in a way that we know they're going to be able to understand it. So that really was our focus, but that's quickly going to turn to where we need to get back to the content and making sure we're getting that delivered. So that's kind of where we're at. I know we have some athletic conversations that we'll be having a little bit later in this meeting. I guess the one thing that I didn't put in my report that did come up today is we still plan on offering the PSATs to all of our students in October. We found out from the College Board that we are allowed to do that across 2 different testing dates, which is big from the College Board because typically they make everybody take it at the same exact time everywhere in the state. So we will be offering the PSATs to our freshmen through juniors on 2 separate dates that we'll be communicating once we confirm them with the College Board. We will also be giving our seniors the opportunity to take the SATs on our expense, or Melmax expense, I should say, because they did get to take them as juniors here on the school day. So they will be taking them as seniors. Again, we'll be able to do that on 2 different dates. It does bring us a few complications. I did say it was a big step for the College Board to let us do on 2 different dates. Of course, they would separate those dates by like 2 weeks. And we can't order the second batch of tests until 2 days after the first set of tests. So there's a lot of scheduling. And so we get basically the first day we can test the whole school, which is a purple day, I believe. So we can do the PSATs for 9 through 11, SATs for grade 12 on that first purple day. And then 2 weeks later, on one of the gold days, we can do just SATs, we can't do any PSATs. We can do the other half of seniors. And then on the other gold day that same week, we're allowed to do the rest of the PSATs, but not the SATs. So it's a little bit of a scheduling. We just have to do a lot of it around. I guess what I'm just kind of looking for your approval on. There may come to a situation where we may not be able to have all of the students in the building on that day in order to successfully deliver the tests and proctor them the way that the College Board asks us to, based on the students in the building. So specifically, it looks like on that second PSAT day when we're testing the gold students, 9 through 11, that gold set of seniors already have taken the SATs earlier in the week, potentially, if everything goes right. And they're mixed in with so many of those other kids throughout the day. I really wouldn't have the staff to give them the right teaching throughout the course of the day. So I may just have them stay home and do asynchronous work that day.
So what happens to the kids that are not purple or gold, but are just home?
So they actually have to come on site if they want to take them. Now, they're all optional. So none of these are mandatory, and these are not going towards our state. This is not part of our ESSA grant. I mean, it's not the state mandating test. We just felt like we had to offer them that opportunity to take it. So if they're fully remote, they do have to come in and take it here, and we will make that available to them.
So let me just ask a logistics question. So there's a state rule that popped up that made us get all these fine desks about how we all have to be so few people in the room and so far apart. if all of these non-purple and non-gold people wanted to take the test, which probably isn't gonna happen, but let's just say it was, do we have the space to take them all?
I kind of have a plan, that's what I'm looking for, by not having some kids come into the building that day,
Okay,
and I would be doing.
so
basic
then
things
our overflow could go on that gold day.
The day that I don't have the seniors show up.
and
So
we
that's
just
kind of
not
my
have
bet.
the seniors show up that day. That
Right.
sounds like a good plan.
Yeah.
Because really, what are the seniors gonna do here anyway?
Right, I mean, some of their classes would be fine, like a senior English class, there wouldn't be any, very little mixing of other, but, I mean, if you're in a phys ed class, you have everywhere from freshmen to seniors in there, so there might only be 2 kids, right, in there, so, so again, I don't feel comfortable giving you an exact plan today, just because it's so new.
Yeah.
But as long as you feel it's okay for me to say, seniors, I need you to stay home to accommodate the testing. Because again, they do still, I can only have so many kids in a classroom, both by College Board standards and then the new state standards for COVID-19. So, and that, which means I still only have so many staff members to proctor all these exams. So I just wouldn't be able to offer a synchronous, even remote education to those seniors that are at home. So we would provide activities for them to work asynchronously in their classes that would be posted to Brightspace, and we would just focus on the testing. There's potential that I may have to do that one of those other days, like I may have to break it up. The freshman testing, PSATs, I can actually do any day I want. I can choose. It's ideal if I can make it work that I test everybody on the same day, so I don't have to have 4 or 5 different weird scheduled days. But there's still a little bit of wrapping my head around the exact logistics of it.
What's the board's feel on this? Everybody okay with this idea? Looks like we're all good with it.
Good, thank you.
Thank you for keeping us informed. We know.
Again, I just think it's important that we hold on to that and give the kids that opportunity. But we will not be forcing the remote students in to come in and take that. And if students aren't here though, however, they will be taking it.
Any other questions for Josh?
Not necessarily, well, some of them might be for Mr. Tripp, but you mentioned Zoom, going to that platform for remote. Has there been some heightened security around that from what last spring?
Yeah, so Zoom, that's the number one reason we want to get to Zoom as quickly as possible, even though Google Meets has done a tremendous amount of work in upping their security. And Ms. McFarland-Mouthface just let me know, but Zoom, they're the number one platform out there in terms of these meetings, and it was in their best interest to sink a ton of money into security updates, and they've done that. There's a reason that you still see a majority of the post-secondary institutions using Zoom as their platform, and school districts. So
Was it Zoom bombing? Was that what
yeah,
was taking place last spring when this all started breaking out?
so we've kind of enabled 2 layers to that. So one, you have to have the link to even know how to get to the meeting. The Zoom session itself is encrypted, so they have a level of security on their own end, so you can't hack into it. And then the other big layer that we have is you actually have to be accepted into a Zoom session. So we've worked with our staff. They have if you try to join through the link, you get put into a waiting room, a digital waiting room, and you cannot join the Zoom session until you're let in by the teacher. And our teachers will not be letting anyone in that does not have an RSU 25 student email address. So I'm not saying it's 100% foolproof, because there's people out there every day for whatever reason that try to take down these systems. But I feel very
I just wanted
confident that the systems we have in place will protect us as much as we can.
And Zoom also comes in different levels. There's a free version, which has a lot less security, which were the ones that were getting hacked most often. And we've purchased a higher level, a premier level, which is a subscription cost, but it gives us that added level.
the other thing, and not necessarily for Josh, but Mr. Booth sent out a link today to Polycom. I don't know if the other folks got that. Just a brief YouTube video. I asked him, conversation we had yesterday, it would be good to see what, I'd like to be able to see what what the students are seeing when they're in their remote classroom. And so thank you for sending that out. I guess maybe Mr. Morrow, next month, we might have a preview of what, what our students are actually seeing. So when people from the public ask us about, hey, what's this look like? What are the capabilities? I can guess at it, but it'll be great to see. So thank you for sending that link out.
Yeah, Jim and I have already talked, and next month he'll have a presentation available to the
Great.
board. So for those of you who don't have children, you'll be able to see what everybody's looking at.
If you visually want to see what the hardware looks like inside the classroom, it's actually sitting right here, sitting at the library. Normally this table is sitting out roughly where Mr. Foster is, so it can capture what's up on the board. So this is actually our camera, microphone, speaker. And then this touch screen allows us to interact and run whatever software we're using, in our case Zoom. And it's attached currently to a Chromebook. The next phase, they're still developing other software for us so that these two pieces will run independent. And the large touch screen is very handy because you can also broadcast your class here so a teacher can see who's in the class, who's attending, who's at the camera, who's appearing without having to modify their device. They can still use their device, type, send emails, project on a board, which then captured by the camera. Now, mind you, the capture of the camera is a capture of a camera. It's not a perfect share. So in different rooms, Mr. Pointer's been our key tech person on this. So he worked with a couple of staff members at VMS just today, taking out some saturation settings so that like right now, Mr. Foster, in the meeting, you're ground up by the board. So we're trying to avoid that in the classroom to make sure it's effective. So we are still learning, we're still updating the software, and each teacher uses a little different. Some people focus on the board, some people moved out a little bit and share their screen, their PowerPoint. And that's what we're encouraging mostly, so that our students get the full quality, you don't have to worry about a washout. But essentially a lot of our teachers like to write over the top of it. That's why they love the projectors on the marker board and some of the interactives. So they want to make sure the students can experience that as well.
Thank you.
Mr. Morrow, I'm finding it extremely disturbing to see my face up there all the time. Can you do something with the camera? I'm like, I look up there and all I see is me. I'm like,
Do we have any other questions for Joe?
thank you.
Okay, then I'm
Trying to hold it.
going to go, usually I see people and I just pick them in a row, but I'm going to have to go by memory, so this might be a Biden moment. But let's go with Todd West.
What does that mean?
It's right over your right shoulder.
Yes. Ditto. Can I just ditto Josh's report? Minus the PSAT stuff. We're not going to do those this fall. But yeah, just like Josh said,
Nope.
yeah, larger than
I
life.
was
Huh?
on mute, but I think he's muted.
Just like Josh said, it was really impressive to see every single person in the district come together to really work and make the start of the school year happen.
Hold on a second, Todd. You should hear Mr. West over here, not up there.
Some of our technical challenges in trying to do these.
Go ahead, sir.
You ready?
Much better.
You're good to
All
go.
right. Yeah. So just like Josh said, having all the staff in the district really come together to work so hard to make the start of the school year happen. When folks left their last professional development day on Thursday, none of our classrooms had desks. And they were in there by Friday afternoon when we left. And the building was full of teachers throughout the weekend, getting classrooms ready and, working so hard to be ready for when students walked in the door. And then when students actually did arrive, it was so nice to see them and, not having seen them since March, these middle school kids that walked out of school about 4'3" tall, and then they walked back in last week and they were 6 feet tall. We didn't even recognize half of our kids because they've grown and changed so much. And the kids, I think everyone was a little worried about how they were gonna react to all the new rules and new procedures and new ways that classes were happening. And our students have not missed a beat at all, and they've been so pleasant and happy to be in school and happy to see their friends and happy to see their teachers. It's been really nice to have them there. It's been nice once remote learning started on Thursday to see the rest of our kids, even if it was up on a screen. Which is not to say that it's not strange around the school to only have 40% of the students in it. And that there's not the normal hustle and bustle and kind of that energy in a school is just not there because there's not as many students, but that's more than compensated for by being able to actually have students in classrooms in front of us and resume teaching in a way that, really supports that relationship building that Mr. Tripp was talking about earlier. Just like the high school, we've also been working our way through learning how to do synchronous remote learning. One of the challenges for the middle school is that the students are not quite as independent as learners as they are at the high school, and actually kind of guiding and supporting that parent desire to help students. And so if a parent is at home with a student and something is going wrong, totally understandable. But the first thing the parent does is pick up the phone and call the main office, and they want it fixed so that their kid can join the class. And so we're trying to provide information to parents so that they can support kids, and then at the same time enable students to navigate eventually a lot of this on their own. So that the students don't necessarily need the parent there in order to participate in their classes. And so, we're doing a lot of things like students will email their teacher at 10:30 and say, how come I'm still in the waiting room for the Zoom? And the teacher will email back, your class doesn't start for 15 minutes. I'll let you in then, but I'm still in my previous class, so I can't do it right now. So just, working with younger kids on those skills and what it means to be a remote learner is a lot of what we're trying to do right now. And I'm sure we'll smooth that out and it'll come together. But there's a lot of students, and they're part of the text generation where if you send an email, they expect that you're going to get back to them as soon as you get it. Not understanding that maybe sometimes the teacher needs to actually wait till their class is done and then read their email and then be able to help you. So, we're working on a lot of I guess learning skills might be the way to put it. And then once those come into play, I think we're going to be in pretty good shape, hopefully. So that's our start of the year. We also have had some sports conversations that we'll talk about at a future agenda item. But all in all, I'm just really proud of how hard everyone worked to pull this off.
Does anyone have any questions for Todd?
Todd, I have a question about what's Fridays? My daughter got a schedule, and I understand that it later got updated, but we didn't understand that. And so she was trying to sign in for classes that I guess aren't there anymore. So what is a Friday look like at the middle school for the kids?
Yeah, so we're running 8 on half-hour intervals, and students need to join their unified arts classes as those classes happen. So they need to join those live. And then we have some asynchronous assignments in alternating classes. So one week they'll have math and science assignments. The next week they'll have ELA and social studies. And then that's also where a lot of our special education services are delivered. And once GT is up and running, we're going to have gifted and talented happening there, as well as an opportunity to catch students up. One of the changes that we had to make in order to fit in like increased passing time, longer dismissal, longer lunches, that sort of thing, was we had to take our intervention block out. And so we don't really have a place in the school day when kids are behind to catch them up. So that's part of what we're going to do on Friday. The scheduled issue that you're referring to, as when you approved the hybrid plan in August, we had to get information. Since we changed the schedule of about half of our kids, we had to get that right out. And Infinite Campus, the period times on Friday had not yet been updated for that half day. So the kids have all the same classes, they're just compressed. And so that's been updated on Infinite Campus, but that first schedule that went out did not have that on there. So teachers are communicating that to students as they go through, like when they're in school, they're showing students. We've developed a situation on Brightspace where there's something called My Home Base that kids can go to that always has their schedule, and that is correct. So we're trying to steer kids to that. But I think a lot of parents got that schedule and tacked it up next to the computer, and that's what they were going off of last Friday.
That's exactly what happened at our house.
Yes.
It was taped, but you're pretty close.
Yeah.
Great. Well, thank you very much for explaining that to me, Todd.
Sure thing.
We don't have any other questions. We can go on to Christina.
I'm gonna change our video here real quick.
Okay.
Take the workload off my computer.
You don't have to do that, Jim.
Go for it, Christina. We can hear you.
Okay. So good evening, everybody. I'm going to touch base with you on both the Jewett School and the Miles Lane School. Kind of the first thing, I guess I could repeat everything that Todd and Josh had to say, but I do want to, before you and also publicly, just give a shout out to my team, because everyone has done a tremendous, and when I say tremendous, it's really hard for me to put into words the amount of work that has been involved over the past several weeks, but custodial staff, front office secretaries, kitchen crew, our teaching staff, our ed techs, I mean, just everybody. Thank goodness for Darcy to help me out. It's just been amazing to watch everybody come together and do roles that they don't typically do. And every little detail that you can think of that an elementary school would need to problem solve, we've had to problem solve. And it's just been amazing to watch that all come together and unfold. I gave you some data in my report about the number of in-person learners that we have at the different levels and the number of remote learners that we have at the different levels. And, we have at the Miles Lane School just right around 220 students on site every single day. And then we have about 70, I believe we're right around 72 right now, remote learners at Miles Lane. And then at the Jewett School, we have about 24 total remote and just around 95 counting the pre-K that started this week. So we have we're full. We have a full house in both buildings, and but a tremendous amount of work has gone in. So I appreciate all of the efforts, and we're still problem solving some things, specifically recess, socially distancing recess with 4 to 6-year-olds or even 4 to 9-year-olds is a challenge. I told Mr. Boothby it's kind of like playing with kittens, but we are working through that, and we've put some strategies in place to do that. And Mr. Gagan has been helping us by having his PE classes be recess procedures and how do you play on the playground differently this year than you've done in the past. And so Mr. Gagan's really worked hard with getting that into place for us. So that's been helpful. And then the other piece that I want to say is just a shout out to our students. I'm amazed at how well they have implemented all of the procedures and everything that we've thrown at them. They do such a nice job wearing their masks appropriately. You should see them walking down the hall, staying on the dots. I think we have 500 dots all around our school, and I'm not joking with that number. They're everywhere. They do such a nice job. They really have taken that on. They do well with their desks, their individual desks, and they're really starting to pick up on Seesaw and some of those things. Our remote classrooms have, we had to get all of our devices out, and thank you to the tech team for working the entire Labor Day weekend to make that happen. But at this point, pretty much everybody has picked up their devices. We've been troubleshooting some things, but those are all up and running, and lots of faces on the screen this week, which was really neat to see. I've popped into a few of those. Even some of our fourth graders are actually, so we're getting them ready for you, Mr. West, because they're actually on the phone with their teachers during the day, troubleshooting what's going on. Their parents or because some of them are with their grandparents, and their grandparents are like, here, you talk to the student. And so the teacher and the student are communicating, trying to solve the technology glitches. And they might not even be glitches, but they're just things that 9-year-olds don't know how to do. You know what I mean? So it's pretty amazing to watch. It's really hard for me to put it into words, but it's pretty amazing. We do have our challenges, not just recess, but just some of the procedures involved in scheduling enough lunch periods to have kids 6 feet apart in spaces, especially at Miles Lane. Not so much of a problem at Jewett, but Miles Lane, that's been challenging. And also drop off and pick up procedures at Miles Lane, just because that road is not designed for something like this. And so that's been challenging. We've changed our procedures probably 3 times in the last, it's only been a week, I think. Yeah, a week. We've changed our procedures that many times, and we'll keep perfecting that to try to just find what works best. But overall, our parents are doing an amazing job when they do drop off and pick up, because they're not coming in the building, and we're asking them to show ID when they pick their child up. That's getting quicker. Things are moving along. So lots of things are happening, and it's very different, but it's been very exciting to see the kids back in the building. So happy to answer any questions you might have about Jewett or Miles Lane.
Do we have any questions for Christine? Yes, no? Thank you.
Thank you.
How about we have Evelyn?
Thank you, Tom. I just want to add a couple of items since you've seen my report. We tried something new this year. We have a new gifted and talented teacher, and he wanted to start in with our PLP meetings right away. So I went to Katie Hodges and said, Katie, can we get an email list of all of our gifted and talented families and students? Well, gave her a day. She got me the email list this morning. We emailed a welcome back to school letter to all of our families and students. And by noontime, we already had 5 PLPs scheduled for this coming Thursday. So I'm excited to see how fast we're going to get up and going with gifted talented services, as was mentioned earlier. We knew we had this time on Friday, and Mr. Ackerman wanted to be able to meet some students even before that time. So we're up and going quickly with those services. We've been working behind the scenes, helping a lot of the online resources that our teachers have done an incredible job of utilizing in their instruction. We've had a few glitches, and so we've been working on getting some additional pieces for our teachers online. And also last week and today we met with Cheryl Toby, our math coach, and we're so fortunate that, as she told us today, she's only able to keep about 2 days ahead of our teachers on looking at quality online math manipulatives. She knows what the content area all of our different teachers are teaching, and if the math teachers have a question, she'll go find it and bring resources back to them. So those items have just happened since yesterday afternoon. So I didn't know if you had any questions or anything else in my report.
Do we have any questions for Evelyn? No, but thank you.
Thank you, Tom.
All right, so how about we have Andrea Marks next?
Oh.
Andrea there?
Go ahead, Andrea.
Hello?
Hi.
Good evening. I clicked it and then it clicked off. That's been my story lately. We've been very busy in special ed land also. I've been very proud of our staff. The week before we had students, our staff made 230 parent telephone calls, basically not short phone calls, at least 15 minutes or so, and talking about how this year will look for their child, what their remote plan would be if they are in a hybrid piece, if there's medical issues that we need to be aware of, and how we would really problem solve some of the functional goals that their child may end up having. I've been really impressed also with some of the remote learning. I've been watching. It's been very interesting to see the seesaw piece in action with the child. It kind of opened up my eyes a little bit, and I could really see the opportunities of accommodations that would be beneficial to SPED children, where they can record their answers to explain what they did. There was some really, really great stuff. It still had some manipulation, so multi-sensory type of stuff. We also have some of the added programs that are at their appropriate level. So I've been real pleased with that, and the opportunities that that would bring. It was kind of amazing with like the 230 phone calls we made. There was a whole slew of parents that said, "Oh, I don't think my kids will be able to wear masks. I don't think my kids." Really, that wasn't the case. They did a very, very good job. Even some of the students that sensory issues are challenged for. I was very pleased that the efforts, of course, you're still doing cueing to help them remember and some lessons around that, but I've really been impressed with that. There have been a few tweaks with the remote pieces, some abbreviated days and such, and that could impact special ed transportations that just a wee bit. But I think if we just look at scheduling and see, and always with that, the goal is to increase their time to the regular day. But that's just an accommodation that we might have had with the IEP and such. We've had 15 new students come in with special needs. 4 of the special ed students have significant challenges. Our safety care training will be held next week. I'm looking forward to that. Mrs. Woods is going to the training, and I hope she's going to bring back to us some of the strategies that can be accommodated to a way so that everyone's safe. You do minimal contact, and you can stay in a more safe distancing situation. Also, our audit came back, and there were 42 components of our evaluation, basically of the audit. And out of the 42, 33 of those components were 100%. 5 were above 95%. There was a 90, 93, and there were only 2 components that were below the 90%, which basically those will be alignment issues, because you have to go from evaluation, identification, it all has to match up and align. And the other one was a very basic piece that was looked more like an oversight, but they didn't use their citations of the learning learning results, their standards correctly. So that's very easy. We'll do professional development around that and work through those pieces. I'm very hopeful. And I look forward to a really great year. So thank you. Is there any questions?
Does anyone have any questions for Andrea? No? I guess not. Thank you very much, Andrea.
Well, thank you.
The next one we have is Kathy, usually. She there? Oh, there she is.
Hello, everyone. Let me just close. My Windows is trying to update automatically. Apologies. I'll make this quick. We had a little rocky start with our university college students because the university informed us there weren't any, and there were in fact students. So they showed up and we weren't there. But that's all been straightened around. And in the meantime, all of them have been moved to remote classes. Not sure what was behind that. We really didn't get much of an explanation, but the entire math department moved remote. I think probably that just works very well for them. And the last 2 courses were given the option of remote or on-site, and they do still have through Thanksgiving the option of coming on-site to Proctor. So we do have the rooms available in Proctor's in place, but it's kind of a little different this year with them all being off-site. Our med students have transferred on-site, and that's gone very, very well. Most of them are working in lower level jobs in hospitals. They might be in the cafeteria or custodial. So they're already used to the procedures, and that went very, very well. Because assessments weren't available remotely in March, all of our students, now that they are available and they are required, we have to re-enroll all of our students. So we've been working on that for the last couple of weeks, and we'll be doing that for probably a few more weeks because we have to get every single student in and get them assessed for their English and math before we can start work with them. Just a little note on the AFLA grant for the hub. In addition to that $71,000, some of our hub mates did not use their grant money last year. I have to tell you, I'm good at spending it appropriately. We used every cent, but there was an additional $21,000 that one of our newer hub mates did not use. So that will roll forward as well. And it was not required to be in the award letter because it's old money, but due to COVID, they just rolled it in. And our hub will be able to use all of those funds. We're hoping to leverage some purchasing and sharing some software so that we can make that go a little bit further. Under Plan Goal 2, that consumer support specialist should read computer support specialist. That is a new program that is a pilot program with the Lumina Foundation with the state, and it will provide a really solid foundation for anyone looking to enter the IT field, and will come with both IC3 and CompTIA certifications. The state has got discounted vouchers, and then we have a set number of students that they will cover almost everything. We're going to one more training next week to see if they're going to be able to do that for free or have a very nominal charge. These are expensive tests, and we're really happy that they've been able to get that. It'll be offered across 2 counties. If you know of anybody who's interested, looking at the IT field, we start right from the ground up. Please tell them to get in touch with us. A program that is not in my report, but we attended a meeting today. The DHS is contracted with a grant to offer behavioral health professionals free training. It's all online, and they will take their tests. There'll be 12 modules, and they'll take the tests as they go. So when they're done, they will have their licensing with the state, and they won't have to go take one great big test. It's, I believe, 45 hours of training, and that will be registered through Adult Ed as well. And I think that's going to be maybe just a $25 processing fee for some of the initial assessments to be sure that they're where they need to be to go into the program. But the state's pushing that pretty hard. It is self-paced, and you can start when you want. You do not have to wait for a class. And those links, we just got them today. They'll be up shortly. So if you know of anyone looking to get on the ground level for that, told the job pay rate is about $14 to $16 for startup, and that there are quite a few agencies that are looking pretty desperately for BHP professionals right now. And I believe that is everything I wanted to point out, unless you have any questions.
Do we have any questions for Kathy?
I have a question. Hi, Kathy.
Hi, Linda.
Hello. So remind me, when do we do a catalog for adult ed?
I should have mentioned that. Our catalog is going out a little bit later, but part of that is we have not received some of the information that we needed to run some of the programs, and I wanted to include that. I actually have a 99% draft sitting on my desk. So we're going to do it a little backwards this year. We're going to put it on the web first. Usually that comes second, with a full color larger, because most of our people will be remotely working. We are going to have some enrichment classes online as well. And then we'll be putting out a much smaller paper brochure, and that we're kind of trying to pick and choose what we'd like to call and still be able to bring people attention to everything that we have to offer. Honestly, I'm waiting for the computer support specialist. Was supposed to be out this week. It's not, it's pushed back another week. So we will probably cut that to a, check our website out for this and start processing the paper as quickly as possible.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Kathy? Jim, you usually go after Kathy.
All right. Try to keep it fairly brief. We've been very busy, as people have said, and I've said this several times, that I'm spoiled here working with the different administrators and department heads, because we've certainly had some situations that could frustrate people, and if we're focused on it, could certainly reflect on our students. Mr. Tripp, even though I gave him more access than I needed to, and I have to redo my entire network to make sure I flush him out of it, it's been very useful this past week because his staff's been amazing, from helping set up the poly cameras to troubleshooting student laptops, to elaborate earlier on the Zoom issue. Basically, day one came in, we said, hey, everyone join Zoom, and everyone's computer shut off. So since we've been in the spring and we've been using Google Meet, we didn't think there was a problem. It turns out the piece of hardware in every one of our high school laptops needed to have an update, and only to connect to Zoom. So we started grabbing laptops and putting them out. What's the funny story about that is that Friday before school started, I distributed all the gold laptops to their homerooms. Called Mr. Tripp, he said, that's nice, thank you, we don't have homerooms anymore, they went to period one. Saturday, we came in, we collected the laptops, we distributed gold out to period one. Tuesday, Zoom shut down, we went out and collected from period one. So you gotta take it with kind of a smile, because if you look at the department, my department itself, I've got 2 technicians that work for me, one person's 50% HR, 50% whatever comes your way across the desk in the data environment. And we've added 450 computers, 100 polycoms, in training for all the people, including 2 learning management systems, Zoom, one of the biggest platforms we could possibly deploy. And we've done it very bumpy, but only because the schools have bought into and owned it and helped us deploy it. And helped each other, like Mr. Tripp said. It's not just the high school. There are so many studious teachers helping other teachers at all levels, all the way up through. And we did use some of our CRF monies to bring in an outside contractor who spent the weekend with me. We played some music. We did 550 laptops, and we came in this past weekend. We did 120 iPads and put them in carts, so they're all in here for students. But overall, it really was a pleasant experience. We're certainly not near there. I've never had my inbox look so large in my life. And my son now knows Brightspace. I'm going to start bringing him on at age 4, because that's all he hears Dad talk about, whether it's while he's sleeping or awake. So a lot to go on, a lot of building to do, and like Mr. Bluthby reminded me, Jim, it's week 1. We're up, we're running, students are attending, with some exceptions. So we're in really good shape. And considering there are schools looking for thousands of laptops to land because they have nothing to give to students. So I feel very lucky where there are schools that bought 50 cameras like what we have, because that's what was left, and there are schools 3 times our size. so they're accommodating through. So even though it's stuff we have to learn, if you talk to some teachers and say, Polly, they may not look at you the same way I do. We're very lucky to have those resources and now have the problem of learning how to wrap them all together most efficiently. So very happy where we landed so far. Our network is holding up. We did some changes back in August to route traffic, and if we look at our internet capability, we basically we'll put a number 750 is how many units can go through. Normal day last year, when everyone's here, we're around 500, 550. I was worried to wrap in 70 to 100 Polycoms broadcasting constantly, plus the teachers connecting, we're gonna blow it out of the water. Due to our configuration, we've gone from about 550 to 210 of our units used in a day. So we didn't have to pay anything for trying to expand or get another source. We just more efficiently used what we did. Back to our student lunch program that Mr. Foster talked about earlier, we have just now been approved as of last Friday, sometime 8 o'clock at night, an approval letter for our next network project, which will even further increase our ability to speak within the school system. Not so much outside, but traffic such as printers, security cameras, Polycom centers talking to screens, and all the background stuff we have going on in the network will have larger increments to bring us from 750 to 10,000 units that we can move at once. So that'll just continue to progress into the future and take advantage of it. And we're also working to move our equipment out of the police department for money to purchase the E-rate. It's supposed to be housed inside the schools, but because of the INET system, everything terminates in the police department. So we have basically had a unofficial nod that you put some gear there, make sure you mark it, make sure it's in your space. We're moving all that gear back into the schools. So we'll be able to be compliant when the time comes and the inspection, we easily point inside our school and not leave. But that's all planning. It's been since 2017 with a couple key partners, and the E-rate program has been huge for us. This project that we're doing is going to cost us just short of $10,000. I gave you a way wrong number earlier, which would be to our favor. So just about $10,000 for a $61,000 project. And if you were to go back to 2018 when we put on the access points and the new network switches, that was a $165,000 project that cost us about $40,000. And that's all because we're at the top level of reimbursement for a rural environment. And if we drop even 6% in our free and reduced lunch, it's another 10 to 15% that comes out of our pocket. So it's doable. Glad to have it there. So that's the importance of that student lunch. And people are just not thinking about it with everything going on. Kids are eating at home. So we're really going to push it out and have people encouraged to apply. Because if they don't qualify, it was 3 minutes at a time and a signature, and we move on with our day. It's really important. We should have every family, even if they don't think they qualify, they should just apply. So I will take any specific questions. If you want to know the stories, maybe we can have them off camera just to tie up, not to tie up the meeting, but specific questions that you have, something we overcame. I know you had a question about Zoom. We have tried to insulate ourselves from Zoom. As you heard me talk about ransomware, viruses, infiltration, security. I will never say we are 100% defended because there are people far bigger than I that get violated in the digital sense. So I will never stand there and say we're invincible. But we're certainly taking the precautions.
Are there any other questions for Jim? All right. Well, thank you very much, Jim. And we will move on to old business, of which there is none. So we got new business, and we have some resignations.
Yes, we have 3 resignations, all of them support personnel. Brianna Coombs, Special Education Ed Tech, Alana Mover, Special Education Ed Tech, and Deb Moore, Special Education Ed Tech.
I would ask for a motion to accept those resignations.
I move we accept the resignations as a block.
Second. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor of the motion? That is unanimous. Next, we have some nominations.
Yes, I have nominations for teachers. I'm very pleased to introduce Dr. Darren Ackerman, District GT teacher. Very fortunate to have him join our staff. We have some folks returning in the support personnel, Nikki Yo, Ed Tech 2, Cassidy Noonan, Ed Tech 1, Jill Havey, Ed Tech 1, Marjorie McCallion, cook at Bucksport High School. We have hired 2 custodians, Scott Gross and Mike Hall have joined the staff. They're going through orientation. And Katie Esslin is the pre-K at Tech 3. And as I mentioned, we have Kyle McGeechan for co-curricular, extracurricular golf at the middle school.
Are we happy to have all of those as a block?
I move we accept the nominations as a block.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor of the motion? And that is unanimous. Next, we have discussion and possible action regarding an employee request for leave.
Yeah, we have an employee who's going out on maternity leave, but has been advised by her doctor that she needs to really extend that a little bit. We've been working with her, definitely in support of this request. So with your support, my recommendation is that you grant extended leave to Amanda Roy.
I move that we grant Amanda Roy's request for leave.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor of the motion? That is unanimous. Next, we have discussion and possible action regarding participation in athletics during the fall of 2020 for Bucksport High School and for Bucksport Middle School.
We've spent, as everybody's been following this, I want to call it a saga. There's been a lot going on through the course of the summer and early in the fall around athletics, getting all parties to work together. We have been at the high school. Mr. Ward's been overseeing our activities, have been actually out and following through with the proper structure, and I think it's a return level 4 of activities. And so we've been following along and just staying exactly to what the specifications were in the guidelines. My recommendation is that we do stay with our plan, in which our plan, we said we would follow the NPA guidelines and the HHS CDC guidelines for extracurricular, co-curricular activities. They have now gone through a vetting process. All the agencies that have alphabets have agreed, and it took quite a bit of back and forth and conversation, and they have come to an agreement. And like I said, my recommendation is we stay true to that and allow the activities to proceed as outlined in the return to sports activities using the community sports guidelines.
So, just so you know, there's been a lot of discussion on
Tremendous
this,
amount of discussion.
and it has gone on for a considerable length of time. And there have been points in time where it looked like we might not be able to do anything for anyone. And the fact that all of these agencies have finally gotten together and agreed on anything that we can do is really kind of momentous. And so I'm just very thankful for the fact that we're able to provide anything for students. And I do think it is important that we do follow these guidelines, because we really can't be the lone ranger who gets ourselves in a fix where we need to repay these large amounts of money that we've got as passed through from the state. But I am under the understanding and belief that we're going to do whatever we can to provide for our kids in our programs, just as long as it meets the guidelines.
That is correct. And some of those guidelines, I know Mr. Ward and Mr. Terrell have been working and planning on, and there's been a lot going on in preparation for this. But we have specific guidelines and we have to follow. We're limited to, at any one contest, we can't have anything more than 100 individuals in attendance, and that includes participants, coaches, administration, anybody we hired around the clock, any kiddos that are chasing balls for us that go out of play, all totaled, including spectators. So we're asking anybody that we compete against, if we're home, we don't want anybody from away coming. Okay, we don't have that available space. If we're over that limit, we're gonna have to turn people away, or else we're gonna have to stop the activity And we need cooperation from everybody. I know we're working on developing streaming to the best of our ability of these contests, so people have a chance to watch them. We've discussed a process by which we will know how many people are coming from another school. We have to track everybody who's coming, we have to have a roster, we have to do attendance, we have to know who's there, we have to track that.
And that includes the spec.
That includes everybody that's there. So we will be able to determine, we may only have 20 available spaces for spectators to come to the game. Okay, so this is gonna be a challenge. We're gonna need tremendous cooperation from parents, family, friends. It's not the way it was. It's not do whatever we wanna do. We have to follow the rules. If we can't follow the rules, we can't have the activities. And as Mr. Foster said, I think it's critical that we remember this is for the kids and about the kids. And we will do everything we can to accommodate as much interaction with spectators as we can, but we have limits. And we're gonna follow those limits. So the sports that we normally run, volleyball, football, soccer, cross country, and golf, and sideline cheering, will all have a semblance of that activity this fall. We're gonna adjust volleyball. We're gonna look at a modified outdoor volleyball activity. Mr. Ward is gonna be looking to see if he can secure other teams to play contests with that, which is fine within the guidelines. Football will be 7-on-7 flag football. Again, we're gonna work with basically county schools, but schools that are within one county bordering us. We will set up competitions with them. Again, it's not what we typically do, but it's something that we can offer the kids. And we'll make the best of that. Soccer will be allowed to go. It's gonna be a limited schedule. Maximum allowable games will be 10 for soccer. We will see, it's gonna be basically a county schedule first, and if we need to fill in, we will. So we're gonna maintain that. Golf and cross country are the only two activities that will be allowed to go beyond county level competition and still go to a regional competition and a state competition if they qualify for either one. But again, we're gonna follow the guidelines that's published and agreed upon by DHHS, DOE, MPA, MSSA, and the governor's office. So, challenge with transportation, because we've had to make accommodations because of the number of people on the bus. We're only allowed 22 to 24 kiddos on the bus, not counting siblings and household siblings. We could double them up in a seat. So we don't have after-school busing availability like we've had in the past. We're only gonna be able to have one bus typically that we can leave early during the day. But Fridays and Saturdays, we're gonna have those more open, so that's where you'll see probably more of the competitions, but I'll leave that up to the ADs. We do not have busing for kiddos who are impacted by hybrid. I'm sorry about that, we don't have that availability, but they're welcome to participate, but they're gonna have to get a ride in by their parents or relatives or however they can manage to do that. So I appreciate the efforts of our athletic directors. They're focused on providing a quality activity. You'll see as my report at some of our junior varsity or our B level in the middle school, you may see more intramural activities as opposed to inter-school activities. But we're going to work to provide opportunities for kiddos.
Did I hear you say earlier co-curricular also?
Well, co-curriculars are limited. I mean,
Right, do we have any co-curricular? Okay, I want to make sure before.
Yeah.
A motion was made, because I didn't
No, it's for
see any
extra-
co-curricular.
It's for extracurricular. I always just typically lump
I know.
co-curricular and extracurricular, but in this conversation, this is purely about extracurricular.
Why did the MSBA pull out of it?
Maine School Boards Association was not supportive because of the motion that their officers took and directed Mr. Bailey, their executive director, to carry the conversation, was that the activity should align to the in-school requirements for physical education, which put on much more stringent guidelines in terms of spacing. Okay, that was not what was the final product that came out, and that was supported by all the other agencies. So they did not feel that they could stray away from the motion that was taken by the MSBA officers.
But that doesn't change our, the funding.
No, we're fine. We're protected by that.
Not
We're,
that that supersedes health and safety.
no,
I want that
no,
clear.
Where the state guidelines and the Maine Principals Association guidelines are now in conformity with one another. And they are both in conformity with the federal CDC guidelines for physical sports, or what is the category?
for community and recreational sports.
Community and recreational sports, which is different than what the state guidelines are for physical education. The physical education happens inside the gymnasium. And so those rules are supposed to be different.
Mhm.
And the Maine School Board Association motion tied the two things together, which the other groups have not been tying the two together. So that's where the difference lies.
Okay, that makes sense.
Although there was a great deal of conversation and concern that there were two different sets of rules. But we've reached a point where a decision's been made. And so my recommendation is based on what we presented for our plan, but aligns with the guidance. So that's where we're at.
So are there any other questions that we have regarding this, or any other statements we want to make, or should we go right straight to motion? I'm getting motion, so what it's looking like, okay.
Well, I move that we follow the MPA's guidelines for extracurricular athletics during the fall of 2020 for Bucksport High School and Bucksport Middle School.
Second. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor of the motion? And that is unanimous. Next, we have discussion, possible action, to authorize the superintendent to waive the requirements, policy BJ bidding, purchasing requirements, recognizing the current declared civil emergency and the requirement for timeline acquisition, PPP, but of PPE, equipment, supplies, and materials, and other necessary items needed to open and operate schools for the fall of 2020.
Yeah, as you heard earlier, it's been a mad scramble all summer and into the fall to acquire. We would contact vendors that would normally carry materials that we would order from, or if it was over the $10,000 threshold, we'd go up to bid. They tell us we can't get it. We're out of stock. That's back ordered. We don't expect it for 18 weeks. So we got into a point where we had to actually just find who had the items, and we had to get them ordered. If we didn't get them ordered, they were being sold the next day. These 1,100 desks, because I called a certain day, and because we were able to get a PO into their hands, as well as a deposit into their hands, we were the last group for that company that was guaranteed that these desks would be delivered before school started. And it was supposed to be a 4-week delivery. They met the expectation. They got here before school opened. It was the Friday before school opened, but they got here and were able to get them spaced out. So if we didn't do what we had to do, we would not have been able to open. We wouldn't have had the technology available to us. We went for sourcing for technology. Mr. Morrill found the Polycom units. There are only 150 left to be acquired, and he secured it. So, you know, I really felt like it was almost, you know, sometimes you see these stories in the Army and the military where you have supply sergeants that are making deals with, you know, another company that may have extra of this and extra of that. And so that's what we had to do for going forward. And you know, the Lexan dividers like you see up here around the circulation desk, when we acquired that, you couldn't find plexiglass or Lexan anywhere. couldn't get it sourced, but we were able to, working through Home Depot, actually were able to get it sourced and get it delivered here. So it's just a reality, and we had to make decisions based on, we either gonna get the materials in so we can open school, or we're gonna spend months playing around. And, we just couldn't afford to do it, so.
Now, the flexibility that you're asking for, just relates to these emergency funds,
These emergency
And just-
purchases,
just for items in this fall semester.
correct. For example, as part of our budget that we passed in spring, we are acquiring a new truck for the facilities and grounds program. Well, we've gone out to bid for that. Bids are coming in. We're following the acquisition protocols per policy for that. So no, this is not an ongoing, free-for-all. It's just, we had to do this now to get things open. From here out, we play by the rules. Hopefully that's a reasonable explanation, and it's kind of like going to the, forgive me, Father, for I have sinned, and,
Yeah.
and moving forward from here. So, yeah, please,
We need an action on this.
you're gonna need a motion. and a vote.
Well, I move that we allow the superintendent to waive the requirements of policy DJ bidding/purchasing requirements for the fall of 2020 to purchase emergency items related to the pandemic.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor of the motion? And that is unanimous. Next, we have consideration of the YMCA's request to reopen the Jewish School Fitness Center to the public.
I've been in conversation with Matt McGinnis, who's the director of the Bucksport branch of the Down East YMCA. The request is specifically to open the fitness center in late afternoons, early evening to members. They will come into the lower door on the Jewett School off of School Street right there. Come in there and only use the fitness room and the adult locker room bathrooms. That's all they'll be using. It's going to be contained between 5 o'clock and 8 o'clock that night. And they will be responsible for locking up the building. They will be responsible for cleaning both the fitness room and the bathrooms that folks use every day. So they'll be prepared to go. This is kind of a initial step to open, slowly open a little bit. There is an energy, folks would like to use it. They're going to control the number of people. They'll actually control, how things are done. People will be required to wear a mask while they're in there, unless they're engaged in specific high exertion activity, those types of things. But they will follow the protocols as outlined for fitness rooms. They obviously have experience with that. Fitness room in the Down East Y in Ellsworth has been open for quite some time.
Orland has been open.
Yeah.
Same. Do you feel comfortable with?
I do.
Okay.
In our conversations, I've asked them to limit it to just this time frame. We'll see how it goes. We'll revisit it later on, but small step first, not wide open.
And this won't violate any of the state guidelines for school buildings.
No. No, we're fine there. And again, this is a shared use agreement for this building. And this is fine based on the community guidelines, community opportunities.
So they will follow the same cleaning protocols that
Yes.
the district does?
Yep, they will. They will not use the motorized misters, hydrostatic sprayers, but we can, on small scale, we can use the same disinfecting solution after they clean. They can spray it down with a regular squirt bottle.
Mhm.
Okay, it takes a lot longer. That's why you don't want to use it that way in all the rooms, but go from there.
Any other questions? Then I would look for a motion.
Well, I move that we allow the YMCA's request to reopen the Jewett School Fitness Center to the public.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor? And it's unanimous. Next, we have selection of local delegate to the MSBA Annual Delegate Assembly.
Well, They are gonna run a annual gathering of the SMA Fall Conference, which a significant portion of that is the MSBA delegate program. Each district has been asked to identify the primary delegate as well as a secondary delegate. And so, folks, you need to, if you're gonna send a delegate, identify that delegate and let me know and identify an alternate.
I volunteer to be the primary delegate.
So do we need a motion for this?
Well, you have to have a backup.
Does that have to be in the motion also?
That
or
should be,
Is
because
David
I-
just
I
gonna
have-
volunteer for that?
I actually,
You're just gonna do what?
Peter's gonna, no, I said that.
I sat in on part of the meeting last year, and it wasn't as frightening as I had envisioned.
it can get interesting at times,
That's what I hear.
yes.
Will that one be on the Friday or Saturday?
I believe that's on Friday, Scott. And it will be done virtually.
Yeah, I knew that. I got the save the date.
Yeah, I got that too, but I didn't think to look at an actual calendar to see if it, I just assumed it was on a Thursday and Friday again. So yeah, that makes it even better. I'm always off on Fridays.
I think it's what, the 23rd?
I believe that's correct, yes. It's not real quick.
Isn't it the week of Halloween?
Well, that would be the 30th, 31st. I didn't think
Yeah.
so. I
Yeah,
thought it was
I thought it was
23rd,
the-
24th. Believe.
Just a minute.
It doesn't, wouldn't really matter. I will be your backup if
Well, I think it's-
Peter will be able to do it next year. That won't be part of the motion,
It
Peter.
will be October 30th,
It is the 30th.
on
Okay.
Friday the 30th.
Okay.
Schedules to start virtually at 2:30 PM.
So it sounds like we've got
Well,
two volunteers.
I move that Mary Asbury will be the local delegate with Scott Frazier as the backup to our MSBA annual delegate assembly.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor? And that is unanimous. I was.
Mary and I almost didn't vote. I think we still would have been in, but yeah.
We'd have to count votes, so we'd have to count all weighted
I'm
votes.
gonna put that in my phone.
And there you go, Mr. Burgess. How many years in a row did you carry that?
Yeah, I was there a few. Mr. Lash took that on for quite a few years, but I had that for a few.
I did it last year, didn't I?
Yeah.
Huh?
I did it last year.
Yep, you did last year.
We have to get Mary a delegate tag. I wonder if she'll get one.
I'm sure they'll send it to her so she can wear it on.
Where it
So-
on,
Zoom, yeah, right.
Yeah.
virtually.
That brings us to calendar and announcements. We have curriculum committee meeting on October 8th at 6 o'clock remotely.
Yes. Tom, can I interject just a second before we get to the,
Sure.
now that I've butted in, stumbling to say my words, but I know that, I don't know, so that's why I'm saying it. I just want to say thank you to the administrators, staff, support staff, everybody at the district. You have my, I just feel so grateful that we have the folks in RSU 25 that we do, that have worked really hard to put the education of our students during this mountain of hills to climb. So just a really clumsy thank you and grateful for all the hard work and appreciative. So that's all I had to say to interrupt. So thank you for letting me say that.
All is a good word.
Aw.
Yeah, no, I mean, all, like, just in all.
Yeah, in awe,
Yeah,
like, not
yeah,
like aw.
Yeah, but, yeah, right, yeah, just
Yeah,
in awe.
in
of it.
awe, yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely, absolutely, very proud of our district and. so,
All right. Policy, are you going to be scheduled to meet?
Yeah, I think October 13th is a Tuesday.
Okay.
And what I'll be doing is bringing to the policy committee the updated draft of the crisis plan for annual review. And, there's the only changes that pretty much are going to be in there are going to be just personnel changes, name changes and different things. We probably had a chance to slow down enough to start working on that, so
Because, you know, COVID might be a crisis.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a crisis, yeah.
All right. Finance School Board, we're going to be meeting on October 20th at 5:30 for finance and 6 o'clock at the school board. And those will be held here for our participants and remotely for anyone who would like to join in. Facilities Committee is.
I think we're gonna be off till November. I'll double check with Gary, but I think,
We don't want to meet with them.
yeah,
All right.
I will keep, the facility committee's members, I'll be in touch with them when we do bid openings for the trucks, so they're aware of what's going on there. And also, we'll be dealing with the light project up to the soccer field, which will keep us actively engaged for a few weeks. End of September, 1st of October.
Are there any other calendar or announcement things that the principals need to let us know about? Sometimes there's some things that are going on at the beginning of the school year.
There's a lot of head shaking.
There's not much going on, Tom.
There's a lot going on, but not much.
All right, good. Just didn't want to leave you out. All right. I would look for a motion to adjourn.